Old school country music was just amazing, and when it's played by an artist like Waylon Jennings, it gets even better. For someone that picked up the guitar at the young age of 8 and became a radio performer at 14, Jennings was definitely a genius when it came to the art of music. Today's video, we'll look at Waylon's lifestyle, his music career, family life, residences, and his involvements outside of music. Let's get right into it. Even just saying the name Waylon Jennings feels like you're summoning the spirit of outlaw country music. Maybe you are. Waylon Jennings wasn't just a musician. He was something of a force of nature. By this, we mean how he lived his life, his daily habits, his family, his favorite things, and his wild tours that established his mark in almost every part of this work. When it comes to his routine, just forget about anything typical. Early in his career, he worked as a radio DJ, balancing that with late-night gigs he got. He'd be spinning records in the morning and then rocking the stage at night. Sleep wasn't ever top priority on the list. As his music took off, he moved his focus to creating, making the studios his second home. He wasn't just a singer anymore, he was an artist, obsessed with making every note as perfect as it could ever be. He wasn't one for a 9-to-5 job and then a midnight music gig. He was hell-bent on using every inspiration that came in, even if that meant pulling all-nighters. While being Waylon the crazed singer, he was also a lovely family man every now and then. He was married 4 times, but his longest and most meaningful relationship was with Jessie Coulter, his wife, from 1969 until his passing in 2002. She wasn't just his lover, she was also his collaborator, and their chemistry mixed pretty well with their music. Together they had a son, Shooter Jennings, who inherited their musical genes. Even with a life as chaotic as his, Waylon always made time for family. He was a man who thrived on connection, whether it was his fans or his family. To think that a man with a life this awesome and wild will have multiple houses is actually a big deal. Waylon's homes weren't about showing off his wealth, they were cozy, lived in, and filled with memories from different events. He had places in Nashville and later in Arizona where he spent his final years. Now let's talk about his prized possessions. Among them was a pair of cowboy boots that once belonged to Hank Williams Sr. These boots were a gift from Hank Williams Jr., and Waylon really loved them. But here's a wild story. One day while wearing those boots, a tree branch became weak and fell on his new Cadillac. The car survived, but Waylon joked that the boots might be cursed. But what if they really were? For Waylon, touring was like a new way of life. Whether it was a smoky honky-tonk in Texas or a massive arena overseas, he gave everything he had on stage. The road was painful, yeah, but it was where he felt most alive, connecting with people through his music. The 1970s were his peak touring years, especially when the outlaw country movement exploded. He and Willie Nelson teamed up for legendary shows that flipped the whole thing to country music. Fans didn't just attend, they experienced something raw, rebellious, and real. Born on June 15, 1937 in Littlefield, Texas, Waylon Jennings' early years were all about the rugged charm of rural life. Growing up in a small town meant music was both an escape and a way to connect. By the time he was 8, he was strumming a guitar like he was born to do it. At just 12, he snagged his own radio show on KVOW. Now, let's talk about his name for a second. His parents originally named him Wayland, but a Baptist preacher had some thoughts about that, so they switched it to Waylon. Wasn't exactly thrilled with it, he called it corny and hillbilly. Over time though, he grew into it. His personal life, it was a roller coaster with a good number of ups and downs. He married 4 times and had 6 kids. At just 18, he tied the knot with Maxine Carol Lawrence in 1956, and they had 4 children together. That marriage didn't last though, and he went on to marry Lynn Jones in 1962, adopting a daughter during their time together. They split in 1967, and later that year, he married Barbara Elizabeth Rood. That one didn't stick either. But in 1969, he found Jessie Coulter. This time, it was different. Jessie was also a country singer, and their relationship lasted. Family was important to Waylon, but it wasn't always easy. The demands of being a superstar and the personal struggles he faced sometimes made things complicated. Still, his kids, especially Terry and Shooter, were deeply connected to him in their own ways. Speaking of struggles, Waylon's battles with addiction are a big part of his story. Like many artists of his time, he got caught up in the fast life. First, it was amphetamines, then cocaine. It got so bad that in 1977, he was arrested for cocaine possession. He even wrote about it in Don't You Think This Outlaw Bit's Done Got Out of Hand? By 1984, he'd had enough. He quit cocaine and turned his focus back to his family and music. But the years of hard living took a toll. Health problems started piling up, heart issues, diabetes, and eventually he lost his left foot to complications from diabetes in 2001. Even with all of that, he kept his passion for music alive till his passing on February 13, 2002. His music was as raw and real as his life. Early on, he worked with Buddy Holly, even playing bass for his band, The Crickets. It's chilling to think that Waylon gave up his seat on the plane that crashed in 1959, taking Holly's life. That tragedy stayed with him forever. Fast forward to the 1970s, and Waylon was leading the outlaw country movement. He wasn't about to let Nashville tell him how to make music. His partnership with Willie Nelson, especially on the album Wanted, The Outlaws, changed everything. Songs like Luckenbach, Texas, and Are You Sure Hank Done It This Way didn't just resonate, they shook things up. Waylon's music reflected his life, plain and simple. Tracks like This Time told stories about his marriages and personal struggles, while others laid bare his battles with addiction. He didn't sugarcoat anything. That's what made him so relatable. Waylon Jennings wasn't just a country legend. He was a man who lived his truth, flaws and all. Waylon Jennings wasn't just a country music legend. He was a man who lived with heart and conviction. His legacy wasn't only about music, it was also about how he used his platform to make a difference, inspired by his own struggles and values. Waylon grew up near Littlefield, Texas in 1937. Life wasn't easy, but it shaped him into someone who always stayed true to himself. His music was the kind that spoke to people on a personal level. Maybe that's why he ended up being inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame 2001. Sadly, by then, diabetes had taken a toll on him and he couldn't attend the ceremony in person. Diabetes was a huge battle he fought for years, and instead of just dealing with it privately, Waylon turned it into something meaningful. Alongside his wife Jessie Coulter and their son Shooter, he created the Waylon Fund for Diabetes Research. This wasn't just a symbolic gesture. They were pushing for cutting-edge research to uncover the genetic roots of the disease. Waylon's passion for doing things his way showed up in other parts of his life too. Take 1985, for example. He was part of the We Are the World recording, a massive charity effort. But when it came to the lyrics, Waylon felt strongly about keeping his artistic integrity. He didn't back down. He walked out. It wasn't about being difficult, it was about sticking to what he believed in. His family followed his lead in many ways. Shooter Jennings and the rest of Waylon's kids became involved in causes that mattered to them, using their platform to support communities and create change. Back in 1988, Waylon received the Horatio Alger Award. It was a nod to people who had overcome tough beginnings to achieve something great, and trust me, it fit him perfectly. That's all for today's video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you never miss out on our latest videos. See you in the next one.